Soul Blazer really feels like the missing link between ActRaiser and Illusion of Gaia. You're a celestial servant restoring a world where everyone has been sealed away, diving into dungeons and clearing monster lairs to rebuild each empty region NPC by NPC. Combat is simple. Your sword does almost everything, while spells tied to a tiny rotating orb feel useless. Regular enemies are easy, but bosses demand tight timing. Even with some cryptic items, the atmosphere, visuals, and haunting music make Soul Blazer a standout hidden SNES RPG. You wake up in a mysterious shrine filled with wooden dolls, and every portal leads you to a completely different world, each one themed around the item you enter from. Mystic art constantly rewards curiosity. Dungeons built around clever puzzles, bottles and items you can reuse, and party members that all feel useful as the story grows. The worlds look great, the soundtrack is surprisingly strong, and the fan translation captures the game's quirky charm. If you love classic SNES JRPGs with creativity and atmosphere, this is one of the best hidden gems you can find. Chaos Seed is one of the most unique SNES RPGs ever made. Instead of a traditional adventure, you manage and expand an underground dungeon while fighting off enemies in fast action RPG combat. You're constantly building rooms, restoring the land's energy, and defending your base all at once. The mix of resource management, real-time battles, and dungeon construction was years ahead of its time. It's complex, creative, and unlike anything else on the SNES. A true hidden masterpiece. Back in the 90s, players discovered Paladin's quest for its surreal, otherworldly graphics and creative magic system. You recruit NPCs, experiment with different attacks, and gradually master spells that drain your own HP, making every choice meaningful. The game can feel long, and despite your efforts, the world often seems doomed, but its unique mechanics, strange atmosphere, and strategic depth make it one of the most unusual and memorable SNES RPGs. Some of the best SNES RPGs never left Japan, and Laplace Nomad is a perfect example. You explore a haunted mansion in 1920s Massachusetts, investigating disappearances while managing a party of detectives, mediums, and other unique classes. The gameplay mixes traditional RPG combat with conversation, sanity management, and quests that reward clever exploration. Its creepy atmosphere, inventive mechanics, and mysterious story make it one of the most distinctive and overlooked RPGs on the system, a hidden gem for fans of horror and strategy. If Laplace Nomad hooked you with its eerie mystery, Treasure of Rudra dazzles with classic 16-bit JRPG flair. You travel through multiple worlds, each with its own story and fuse spells using the unique Kodō system, letting you craft dozens of custom attacks. The turn-based battles demand strategy, with buffs, debuffs, and boss planning. Its animated sprites, smooth environments, and intertwining storylines make it one of the most ambitious and underappreciated SNES RPGs, a must-play for fans of classic Squaresoft-style adventures. Two soldiers abandon a corrupt empire and become fugitives, and from that moment, every choice you make shapes your journey, who joins you, who leaves, and which ending you get. Feda is a story-driven SRPG that feels like a more serious Shining Force. Battles are simple, but elevated by slick 16-bit animations and flashy special moves. The narrative explores justice, loyalty, and consequences with just enough humor to keep things from feeling too heavy. Customization is limited, and the progression is linear, but it's still a standout, overlooked tactical RPG that fans of the genre should check out. If you're digging through lesser-known SNES action RPGs, Lagoon by Kemco is a surprising pick. You take control of Nasir, exploring towns and dungeons in a top-down perspective reminiscent of Soul Blazer and YS. Combat can feel a bit awkward, sword slashes have limited reach and quirky directions, but smart positioning and strategy make it work. The game features regenerating health and magic, simple enemy AI, and low-stress escort missions. Coupled with excellent music and charming visuals, Lagoon is a slow-paced but enjoyable 16-bit adventure for fans of classic action RPGs. Neugier is a hidden SNES action RPG blending real-time combat, exploration, and clever puzzles. You guide a young hero through vibrant towns, mysterious forests, and tricky dungeons facing quirky enemies and inventive bosses. Its colorful graphics and charming soundtrack create an engaging world, and while combat can feel clunky, mastering it alongside exploration makes Neugier a rewarding, often overlooked 16-bit adventure. Metal Max Returns is a post-apocalyptic SNES RPG that never left Japan, now playable through fan translations. You play as a bounty hunter in a vast sandbox, upgrading your party and customizing tanks with weapons, armor, and gadgets. Combat is turn-based and challenging, while exploration offers a gritty, Mad Max-style world full of quirky encounters and hidden treasures. With its freedom, tough battles, and deep customization, it's a hidden SNES gem well worth experiencing. In a mysterious island filled with dragon-blooded creatures, you guide a party through towns, castles, and tundras, collecting powerful tears from princes and princesses. Drakkhen challenges players with chaotic, punishing combat and unbalanced character progression, demanding patience and strategy. Despite its difficulty and occasional frustration, the game shines with impressive graphics, eerie sound design, and a unique atmosphere, making it a distinctive 16-bit RPG worth experiencing. Arcana is one of those SNES RPGs that quietly stands out the moment you see its style. Instead of typical character arc, the entire game is presented through card-based portraits, giving it a mysterious, almost tarot-like vibe. You play as Rooks, a young cardmaster exploring first-person dungeons, summoning elemental spirits, and fighting through some surprisingly tough encounters. Arcana isn't the flashiest RPG on the system, but its atmosphere, its challenge, and that unique card aesthetic make it a hidden gem worth revisiting if you love classic dungeon crawlers. It's rare to see an SNES RPG built entirely around inventing and customizing your own robots, but this one really went for it. You play a young inventor exploring dungeons, building new bots in R&D labs, mixing items, and even crafting abilities from scratch. The combat is fast and quirky, almost like tossing out a proto-Pokeball and letting your creation do the work. It's not a perfect system, balance is all over the place, and the humor doesn't always land, but the creativity behind its robot building and its strange little sci-fi world give it a charm you won't find anywhere else on the system. You start off thinking this is just another quirky SNES adventure, until the setting opens up into a full theme park based on old sci-fi and adventure novels. Robots, strange creatures, and odd little attractions all blend together in a way that feels strangely nostalgic. About halfway in, Verne World shows its real charm, a mix of light RPG mechanics and surreal, almost comedic world building. The gameplay isn't deep, but the creativity of the setting makes it one of those odd SNES titles you remember long after you finished it. Some might think this game is too famous to call underrated, but surprisingly few people have actually played it. Midway through the journey, Terranigma reveals a powerful story about revival, discovery, and loss. Its visuals swing from warm, vibrant towns to eerie, atmospheric dungeons, and the fast combat keeps everything sharp. Boss fights are striking too, big, strange, and surprisingly intense. A short adventure, but one that lingers long after the ending. Inindo Way of the Ninja starts off with a simple revenge setup, but the deeper you go, the more the game surprises you. An early branching point actually shifts the types of enemies, key dialogues, and even the final boss you'll face. The blend of dungeon crawling, recruiting new warriors, and managing a bit of political strategy gives it a distinct rhythm. Tough in places, but always rewarding. It's a unique take on the SNES RPG formula, and one that keeps its replay value for years. Emerald Dragon is one of those SNES RPGs many players never discovered, mostly because it originally released only in Japanese. But once the fan translation appeared, the game finally got the attention it deserved. Its anime-inspired visuals, the touching story of a dragon taking human form to protect the girl he loves, and a fast, movement-based battle system give it a charm that stands out even today. It's not the most complex RPG on the system, but Emerald Dragon has a warmth and style that make it unforgettable once you give it a chance. Bakumatsu Kouriden Oni is one of those Super Famicom RPGs that almost no one outside Japan has played, simply because it never received an English translation. These days, the only real way to experience it is through AI-assisted translation on modern emulators, and surprisingly, that works well enough to enjoy the story. The game mixes classic turn-based combat with a gritty Bakumatsu setting, blending real historical figures with demons and spiritual battles. Its pixel art towns and character portraits are full of personality, and the darker storyline gives it a tone very different from most SNES RPGs. A hidden gem, just locked behind a language barrier. Glory of Heracles IV stayed hidden for decades because it never had an official English release. Only after a fan translation arrived in 2016 did players finally get to experience it. Set in ancient Greece, the story mixes Pandora's Box, Atlantis, and the gods in a way that feels refreshing for a 16-bit RPG. Combat is straightforward, but the body switching mechanic, letting the hero inhabit different forms with unique stats, adds surprising depth. With colorful visuals and memorable boss designs, it's a mythological gem that fans helped bring back to life. Warriors: Legend of the Blue Dragon stands out with its dramatic tale of rival kingdoms, ancient dragons, and a prophecy centered on the Blue Dragon. The turn-based combat is classic but punchy, and the vibrant pixel art gives its world a bold, heroic feel, especially during the bigger boss encounters. It's easy to see why the game stayed hidden for so long, though. The original release was entirely in Japanese. Only after a full fan translation arrived in 2014 did players outside Japan finally get to experience this overlooked JRPG. Zack is one of those Super Famicom action RPGs that many players simply never stumbled upon, even though it delivers a surprisingly polished adventure. The combat is fast and punchy, clearly influenced by YS, and the dungeons mix tight corridors with sneaky traps and tough mid-bosses. Its bright pixel art and classic fantasy atmosphere still hold up really well. For years, the game was locked behind a Japanese-only release, but a fully completed fan translation in 2017 finally made the story of Latok and the blood lineage accessible to everyone. Dual Orb II is a classic-style JRPG with a much stronger sense of pacing and drama than it first appears. The turn-based combat is fast, the spell effects are surprisingly flashy for a 16-bit game, and the bosses hit hard enough to keep every dungeon tense. The story builds into a big, almost operatic tale about ancient magic, buried civilizations, and the fate of the world, with a few twists that land better than you'd expect. It stayed obscure for years due to the language barrier, but a later fan translation helped more players discover just how solid and memorable this adventure really is. Stepping into this chapter of YS brings back the classic bump combat style, where timing and positioning matter more than weapon swings. Its bright overworld, tight dungeons, and frantic boss patterns give it a pace that feels true to Adal's early adventures. The story blends ancient relics, sealed power, and that familiar sense of discovery the series is known for. It was Japan only at release, later made accessible through fan translations, a warm, energetic slice of early YS history. It's rare to see an SNES RPG this obscure but this ambitious. G.O.D blends modern Japan, psychic powers, cults, and bizarre monsters into something that feels part Earthbound, part early SMT. The writing is sharp, the situations stay unpredictable, and its strange momentum keeps you curious. The combat can be slow and a bit grindy, but the world easily carries the experience. Originally Japan only, it finally reached a wider audience thanks to a 2018 fan translation.
The 2017 fan translation finally let more players see just how impressive Tengai Makyou Zero looks. Big, expressive sprites, unique enemies, and a world overflowing with detail. It's easily one of the best presented RPGs on the Super Famicom. But the game stumbles elsewhere. The story sticks to predictable chosen hero beats, the real-time clock adds little, and battles drag due to long animations and a very high encounter rate. Beautiful to look at, but uneven as an experience.
This early Super Famicom adaptation of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is more of a curiosity than a must-play RPG. It retells Part 3 with first-person exploration and slow, methodical turn-based battles that aim to capture the feel of stands in a very early form. The art and portraits have plenty of charm, but the pacing drags and the combat can feel stiff. Since it never left Japan, it stayed obscure, and honestly, it's best suited for dedicated JoJo fans who want to experience every corner of the series, even the rougher ones. Uncharted Waters offers a very different kind of SNES RPG. Slower, more strategic, and built around sailing, trading, and discovering new ports instead of fighting monsters. The appeal comes from charting routes, growing your fleet, and watching the map open up as your influence spreads. It's not for players who want fast pacing, but for anyone who enjoys open-ended exploration and naval strategy, it's one of the most atmospheric adventures on the system. Last Bible 3 shifts Altus's style into a classic fantasy world, starting with a familiar setup, but adding a few sharp twists as Ciel's journey unfolds. The monster recruiting system stands out most, negotiating responses, watching a success meter rise, and managing a party that constantly changes as monsters level, equip gear, or walk away. With colorful visuals and imaginative enemy designs, it's a solid 16-bit RPG that became far more accessible once the full English translation was released. Originally a Japan-only release, Galaxy Robo only became widely playable after a full fan translation, and it's a good thing it did. What starts as a cute, simple mecha SRPG quickly turns into a harsh tactical gauntlet with enemy swarms, tricky terrain effects, and battles that punish slobby positioning. The visuals are basic, but they have their charm, and special attacks hit with satisfying impact. It's uneven, sure, but for fans of old-school strategy, there's a stubborn little spark here that's easy to appreciate. Final Fantasy Mystic Quest takes a stripped-down, welcoming approach to the RPG formula. Battles are quick and easy to read, party management is light, and the dungeons add just enough puzzles to keep things interesting without slowing the pace. There's a gentle rhythm to the whole adventure that makes it incredibly accessible. It won't satisfy players looking for depth, but that simplicity is exactly what gives the game its charm. A relaxed, beginner-friendly journey backed by one of the catchiest soundtracks on the SNES.
The SNES is one of the systems with the largest game libraries, which means there are countless great titles that many players have never even heard of. And honestly, before I really dug deep into the library myself, I also never expected that there were games as unique and mind-blowing as some of the ones on this list. Some games are truly one of a kind, like Chaos Seed, a title unlike any other SNES RPG, mixing action combat, dungeon building, resource management, Fengshu energy control, NPC automation, and multiple branching endings. Others are breathtaking in terms of visuals, like Terranigma, often regarded as one of the top 5 most beautiful SNES games, thanks to its smooth lighting, vivid colors, detailed environments, fluid animations, and almost 32-bit level presentation. I genuinely hope these masterpieces get the remakes they deserve, remakes that can honor and preserve the soul of the originals. If there are any amazing obscure RPGs that I haven't mentioned in this list, feel free to drop them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.